Welcome to the XO Marriage Podcast, brought to you by Marriage Today. This podcast is an inside look at all things XO and is dedicated to helping you thrive in life and in love. I am Brent Evans, president of Marriage Today and founder of XO Marriage. During one of our recent XO events, I sat down with Clayton and Ashlee Hurst. If you don't know them, they are the marriage and family directors of Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. We discussed the struggles they faced in their first few years of marriage and how they found hope in their relationship. They are now taking that information and what they learned and spreading the hope to all couples they encounter, but also how that hope changed their family and is impacting their kids and future generations. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, but this holiday season really can be one of the most stressful and lonely in a marriage. But we want everyone to know there's hope for you. Let's listen in to my conversation with Clayton and Ashlee. We are live in Rockford, Illinois, and we're having a good time here at the XO conference, XO Rockford, City First Church. And, I was introduced to the pastor and the marriage pastor really through Clayton and Ashlee Hurst, who are our guests today on the program. So welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
We've known each other for a long time. Y'all are the marriage pastors at Lakewood Church. Has anybody heard of Lakewood Church in America? Who hasn't heard of a Lakewood Church?
I don't know. It's just this little startup church out in Houston.
Kind of a cowboy church.
Yeah. This pastor, I think he's going to make it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Jerry Osteen? No.
Olestein.
We hear that a lot.
Make sure you add the L.
No. Well, we're friends, and so it's great to have you on the podcast. Y'all have a session coming up this afternoon, and of course, y'all spoke at the XO conference in February at Gateway. Mm-hmm. Today is about learning more about you, more about your message and your book, Hope for Your Marriage, which has been out for 6 months
right yep.
now.
Mm-hmm. Right about, yeah.
And is it just killing it?
Oh, man. It is actually a bestseller in our home, and all the kids have it. Yeah, it's great.
No, y'all really have been on the charts.
Yeah, we it's funny. A kid, or he's an adult now, but from our children's ministry. So we used to do kids ministry for years, and he had contacted Clayton. He's about to get married, and he lives in Cape Town, South Africa. And Clayton was like, well, let me send you our book so that way we can kind of go through our book. And he goes, well, they sell it at the bookstore down the road. Do you want me to just go buy it? And we're like, what? Are you kidding? We had no idea. So
no clue.
We're from East Texas, small town. So it kind of blows our mind when we hear these things about our book and it being in different places like that.
Yeah, and people are, they're using it in small groups. We have questions at the end of each chapter. Mm-hmm. And, we really just kind of shared our story about what God did and how he did it and the steps that we took to get out of a kind of a dark place in the beginning of our marriage. And we're really kind of beside ourselves on what God's using it for and what he's using our story for. And people are seeing results from it. So
you're so humble, but you guys, again, are the marriage pastors at Lakewood Church. You have a book out called Hope for Your Marriage. That is a great book, and it really should be read by everybody out there. Small groups should be doing it. So congratulations on that. It is like having a baby, writing a book and releasing it, and you just hope that people will appreciate the child that you've just given to the world. It's a part of you.
Yeah. For sure.
And it really is resonating with so many couples. And I just wanted to mention this too. Y'all heard the story at our conference in February at XO. There was a couple that was, I think y'all were maybe the 5th session or something like that. They'd been a part of the conference that day. It was y'all's session that really broke through their heart. And it was your message, the one that's from Hope for Your Marriage, that transformed their marriage. And I know they came up to you guys and shared their story.
Yeah.
But that's got to be encouraging.
I think it makes everything that it took to like you said, deliver the baby, deliver the book. I think it makes all of that worth it. That just one couple, could get something out of it.
Yeah.
I think it was literally a labor of love. There were so many times, writing that we kind of had to go back and relive. We had to go back and remember what we really put each other through, and there was a lot of tears, great conversation. We now tell couples is like, maybe you should write a book, just because it makes you open yourself up to go back to.
It's therapeutic.
Yeah, very therapeutic kind of healing process, even more than what we thought we needed.
Well, yeah, and we were very vulnerable in our book. We kind of put it all out there of everything that we went through. And so, of course, when you expose yourself in that way, the enemy tries to attack you. And, well, especially for me, of just, I can't believe you put that in print. I can't believe you're saying those things about what you went through and what, things that people didn't know. A lot of people from our hometown didn't know the things that we struggled with early on in our marriage.
You're very vulnerable in that state.
And so to hear the stories of people saying how much it's helped them, it means everything, because it wasn't done in vain. It really was. Our whole purpose was to help marriages and to help people that, because our story is not a unique story. We've found that it's a very common story, but that's why it needs to be told, because so many people go through the same things that we go through, but yet they're scared to share with anybody. They're scared. And a lot of times, I know for me, the enemy would tell me, you're the only one that goes through this. How could you be in this place? How could you get yourself to this point? And it's such a lie. We all go through things. There's not one marriage out there that hasn't dealt with things or issues and needs some help.
Right.
Describe the valley for those listening that don't know your story. Describe the low point where rock bottom was.
Yeah, I think for us, it was, it didn't happen overnight. I think we thought that marriage was going to be a great time.
Easy.
It was going to be easy. We had great parents that modeled a great marriage, grandparents that modeled a great marriage. I think for us, it was a slow descent. It was just little things that would happen, little things that would happen. And I think we got down to the bottom probably about year 5, between year 5 and year 6. And we were both very prideful. I was very prideful, very arrogant. I didn't know what her problem was. I knew I had it all together. I had all the answers. Felt like I was getting my respect from work and from people outside. People would come up to Ashlee and go, "Oh my gosh, Clayton's so funny, to work with. I can't
at
imagine
our church.
He
was a pastor at our church.
I can't imagine what he's like at home." And she would say,
I was just like, "Oh yeah, he's great," but in my mind, I was thinking he's a big jerk, is what he is. Like, you don't even know. I wish I had that guy at home.
Yeah.
I don't know who that guy is.
So I think it was, and we assumed that we were the only ones. We assumed that, everybody else seems to have, a great marriage. Seems like they're all smiling and having a great time. What's our problem? What's our issue? And I think for us, it was the point that was the turning point for us was funny because I was a pastor, people were coming to me for advice, marriage advice. I could tell people how to have a great marriage, but I couldn't do it on my own, and couldn't have a great marriage on our own. And there was a couple that had been coming for quite a few weeks. I was trying to help them, felt like we were making progress, and found out later that they ended up getting a divorce. Well, I was prideful and arrogant. How dare you, all this kind of stuff. And another couple gets ready to come in, and I remember I know it was the Lord that just kind of spoke to my heart and said, "Are you willing to do whatever it takes to have the marriage you've always hoped and dreamed of?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I'm gonna ask this couple, about that question." Of course, I sat them down and asked them the question, and they said, "Well, yeah, of course, that's why we're here. We want to do whatever it takes to have a great marriage." And I remember leaving that session that day and driving home, and I felt like the Lord spoke to my heart again and said, "Clayton, that question wasn't for that couple. That question was for you. Are you willing?" And that was a breaking point for me. And I got home. I explained to Ashlee everything that had happened, and this was 5 years.
5 years. I'd just given birth to our first child. I was dealing with postpartum depression. And then just not having anybody to talk to because I didn't feel like I could go to him because he would always try to fix all my problems and wouldn't really listen to me. And I was because he was a pastor at our home church, then he was the kids pastor, I was too embarrassed to talk to anybody about anything I was going through. I didn't even know it was postpartum depression. I thought I was going crazy. And so I was kind of at my wit's end and my lowest point I even had suicidal thoughts because I just didn't know where else to turn. And so when he came home and he said all these things, and it was the first time I'd ever seen really humility in him, it was everything to me. It was a turning point in our marriage where I saw hope, where I saw, okay, maybe we can work through this. Here's hope. He's actually exposing himself to me. He's being vulnerable, and I've never seen that side of him. What do I need to do now? What's our next step? Was kind of where we were at that point.
And that was really the low point, and it didn't happen overnight to get out of that It took us 5 years to get into the bottom of the valley, and it took some time to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a daily choice that we made. I think we realized early on that in that process that every day was waking up and choosing to love each other, choosing to respond kindly to each other, choosing to do things for each other. And there were times where we didn't feel like it. It's like half the time you may not feel like you're saved, but you know that you're saved, because of what Jesus did on the cross.
Yeah.
So there were times during that season that I didn't feel like, or she didn't feel like, that we loved each other, but we chose love, and began to just speak life into each other. We
declared it. Yeah. Matthew 17:20 is when Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he says, if you just have a little bit of faith, you can speak to that mountain and it will move. And so we didn't have this big amount of faith that everything was going to be okay. But we had a little bit of faith, and that's all you need. You just need a little bit of faith. And with that, we just began to declare. We began to speak over our marriage, even when we didn't feel like it. We were just like, we are going to get out of this. Lord, you're going to help us get out of this. Help us to choose to love each other every day. Help us to forgive each other every day. And slowly but surely, man, but it just, if you just have a little bit of hope, if you can just see a little bit of light through the darkness, it makes all the difference in the world.
I think we were at a place to where we weren't necessarily looking to the very top of that valley. We were just looking at our next step.
Yeah.
Because I think there are times where we'll talk to couples and they are in kind of the same place where we are, and they feel as though it's so overwhelming to get to a good place, or to that high mountaintop experience. But a lot of times what we'll tell them is that, are you willing just to take a step?
Yeah.
And if you can take a step today, you can take a step tomorrow. And then you can take another step. Well, then after a few weeks, you look back and, you may not be where you want to be, but at least you're not where you used to be, And I think that was huge for us, that it was just a little step every day.
And we also started reading books. It's so important to get the knowledge. We were lacking the knowledge that we needed. We didn't do pre-marital counseling, which we should have. So important.
It's very common. Yeah. Not a lot of people do it.
Yeah. We went to one session and I don't know, we just kind of blew it off. We didn't really think it was that important. We thought, this will be easy, But we started reading books. We found a couple to mentor us that we would go and have dinner with or coffee with and really just pick their brain and find out how this marriage thing works. They had really great kids. They were just great parents. So we just really gleaned a lot from them. And that was really important too for us to do that as well.
Great, this small sidetrack, but a great full circle moment. That couple was actually, they were at one of the simulcast locations for the XO conference back in February. They drove over and met us that night in the lobby at Gateway Church, and just had a great opportunity just to see the full circle moment of, it's like going, do you guys know what you spoke into our life? And there was just this mutual thing that, they were so proud of us and we were so grateful for them of everything that they helped us
their
with.
kids are in college now and just, it was just like, wow, it was a full circle moment to see them and just say, because of you and what you poured into us, this is what we're doing now. Thank you.
You're in an interesting season of life because you have a daughter that's almost 18 and you have a son that's around toddler still or about to be pre-K.
Yes.
And so describe the dynamic of that, of being, you've got a good marriage, but the stress of kids, having to deal with teenagers and toddlers. What does a typical day in the life of the Hursts look like?
Well,
a lot of praying and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah, I have to get up really early just to have that time with God.
Yeah.
Because I know, it's like in any family with kids. It's like as soon as one gets up, the others are up. And, there's it's like you've lit the fuse and it's time to go. And I think for us, we're at a place in a season in our life to where it's just full tilt boogie all the time.
Yeah.
With a daughter who's a senior in high school, another daughter who's a sixth grader in first year in junior high. Both of them are very active in extracurricular stuff with theater and things like that. And then you throw a 3-year-old in the mix. He brings a lot of joy that we weren't expecting. I think when we first found out we were pregnant, I was 43. Ashley was getting ready to turn.
I was 2 months from turning 40.
It was just so not in what we were thinking was about to happen. We're thinking, oh my gosh, we're so close. It's like we see the finish line.
The finish line was so close.
And literally, I think we all went through all the stages of
grief, 7 stages of grief. And I did in one day, I think. Yeah. This can't be happening.
But now to pull back and see, we had a good marriage then, but I think it's just drawn us even closer. I think we take the time to continue to have date nights and to continue to do things together. What we didn't realize was how much our having a great marriage impacts our children.
Yes.
And how our kids are constantly watching what we say, what we
100%.
do. 100%. It's not about what you tell them, it's about what you show them. Because they're constantly looking and even picking up on things that we never thought that they would pick up on.
Yeah.
And from the way they talk to either Ashlee or myself and the importance of showing love, showing respect to us. But yeah, it's been a full circle.
Yeah, Addie, our oldest, who's about to turn 18, we were back in the spring when we were, promoting our book. We were on like a local television show, and she and I were watching it, the playback of it, and she was like, "Yeah, I really liked when you said this one point, because I remember you guys talking about that the other day, and I thought that was really good." And I'm like, "You were listening to what we were talking about?" She goes, "Mom, I listen to everything you guys say." I'm like, "Okay, all right, no pressure there, no pressure there." But yeah, she's really taking it in. It's funny because she finds the whole honor and respect of men and how women need love, those number one needs, of security, love, and honor and respect. And she's talked about it with her friends, and she's even told me, I think she's really struggling with her boyfriend or whatever because she doesn't understand how much he needs honor and respect and how much. And I'm like, what? Wow, I didn't think about things like that when I was her age, but it's so important. They pick up on everything you talk about. We really try to talk about those things in front of each other. And I think another thing that we do that's really important is we are far from being perfect parents. I mean, far from it. And we lose our temper. We get upset with them, but especially Clayton. I love that he always...
Especially me. I lose my temper all the time.
No. But it really, he will come back around and apologize and humble himself to our kids. And that just speaks such volumes to me. And I realize, okay, I need to do that more. I'm not doing that as much as he is. But I love that they get to see that side of us, because we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We, get upset with our kids, lose our temper. But when I see him come back around and do that, I just think we're teaching them how to forgive. We're teaching them how to forgive their future spouse. We're teaching them how to be vulnerable with their future spouse. And I just think that's so important. I
think what I've seen is that when you do that, when you're real with your kids and you're honest and you make mistakes and you say you're sorry, it really opens up the door for great communication and great conversations. I've had some great conversations with our oldest daughter and even preparing her now for marriage. And I've told both of my girls this, my number one, as a father, my number one responsibility is to guard and protect your heart so that on the day that I present you to your future husband, it has as little scars as possible on your heart, And I think having those moments to where I can kind of help and instruct and kind of show her, hey, this is what a guy's thinking. This is from a man's perspective.
Yeah, if you wear this or if you say that. And, I have a wonderful father. I love my father so much, but I never had those he never had those conversations with me, which I think is the majority of most people. The fact that Clayton has those conversations with our daughters is just huge. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, we're very open with them about boy-girl relationships, and we have pretty strict rules about dating. And I love that he's a part of that conversation. He is so involved in that conversation with them. And
any shotguns or bats?
I like to keep those things hidden. That way you never know, But one of the things we told our daughters from an early age is that, hey, you can have a boyfriend anytime you want. But there are 3 standard things that we go by. One, they have to love God with all their heart. They have to be involved in their local church. And then they have to come talk to me. I've never had a young boy come talk to me. And it's not that I wouldn't be open, but what I try to explain to them is that, I'm not only helping you try to find the one that God has for you, but I'm also trying to help keep the riffraff out. And so if there's a guy that you don't think, I don't really like him, just tell him you got to go interview with my dad. And they'll take off running. And so yeah.
What is the nothing box?
It's that safe, fun place that guys go to.
I think that's pretty common in guys' world, and I think it's good for our listeners to kind of hear you explain what a mind of a man looks like.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
And I think that's probably, we send out surveys, and it's funny how number one need, a lot of times, number one issue that couples deal with is communication. And I think it stems from not understanding how we process information. but I think also looking at each other and recognizing the masterpiece that God's created in your spouse and how they process information, how they store information, how they communicate information is to be, revered and to be looked at and like, wow, that's interesting. I don't understand it. I don't see it, but okay, I respect that, And so one of the things that we talk about in the book is the nothing box. And I told Ashlee, I said, I just had to help you understand. I said, my mind is a lot like a storage facility. There's a lot of, storage facilities you drive by and you open up one garage door and there's a lot of boxes inside of it. And there's a box for me, there's a box for family, there's a box for work, there's a box for, kids or wife or whatever. And then I close all those boxes and I put them down and I go to the other garage door, and there's other boxes. Well, one of those boxes is the nothing box. And for me, I love getting in the nothing box. And so early on in our marriage, whenever she would say, hey, what are you thinking about? I would just say, nothing. And she would be, what do you mean you're not thinking about nothing? Well, come to find out, her mind is more like the backside of an entertainment center. Mm-hmm. Cables going everywhere, plugged into everything. The front side, it may not be turned on, but everything is got power going to it. And she's constantly thinking. So I asked her one time, I said, so does your mind ever shut off? And she goes, no, that'd be weird. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stressing out just thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But then we found out that, not every man thinks like I think. Not every woman thinks the way she does. Sometimes they're different or they're opposite.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think that was such a huge thing for us.
Yeah, because when he would tell me that he was thinking about nothing, I would think, okay, he doesn't want to talk to me because that's impossible. So why doesn't he want to talk to me? What have I done? What did I do wrong? Why doesn't he want to have a conversation with me? And so when we kind of discovered this nothing box, I was like, really? And so I would ask other men, I was like, you really can think about nothing? Yes. What? No. So I'd ask another man, is this real? Is this true? Is this possible? Yes. Like, wow, that I still can't imagine what that's like.
Well, and I think for men that are listening, thinking about your wife, and I've asked Ashley this question, I'm sure every man that's listening has had their wife ask them a question that came out of left field. Right? You're driving down the road and just something pops up. You're not even having that conversation about anything. And then she comes in with a question that is just so out of left field. And I asked Ashlee this one day and I said, before I answer this question, I don't even remember what the question was. I said, will you just tell me? It
was like, why is that building there?
Yeah. Well, and I said, I said, will you just tell me, where did that question originate? She goes, I don't think you're ready to go down that rabbit hole. And I said, okay, just try me. She said, well, I saw that sign back there, and that reminded me of a second grade teacher, and that reminded me of this, and that reminded me of that. And I mean, all these different things. And I'm like, how long did it take you to think of that? And she goes, a couple of seconds. I'm just like, that just stresses me out to no reason. So
yeah,
it was just, but I stand in awe of how God has created that. But I wish I would have done that early on in our marriage. Mm-hmm. That we would have that understanding of how each other processes information and how we regurgitate that information in communication. Man, that would have saved a lot of fights, a lot of friction, a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Give our listeners just one final marriage nugget. Like if you could talk to a couple, let's just say married maybe 5 to 10 years, because I think that's the most stressful times in a relationship. Mm-hmm. You're within that zone of honeymoon phase is over. You've added a lot of stress, job, kids, whatever it is. If you could tell somebody one thing to keep their marriage fresh, good, whatever it is, just something they could hang their hat on every day.
Yeah.
For me, I think Clayton already touched on it earlier. I would say it's the understanding of what that agape love is, of choosing to love your spouse every day, because love's not a feeling, it's a choice. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge mind change for us because, there were days where I didn't feel like I wanted to love him because he was being mean to me. And once I understood that 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, it keeps no record of wrong. I even was at a wedding recently where the pastor changed that and put their names in there. Ashlee is patient, Ashlee is kind, Ashlee keeps no record of wrong. And I think that's a really great way to look at it. And maybe even to meditate on that of, I've got to be patient with him. I've got to, I don't keep a record of every time he's hurt me, of keeping those things in the forefront of, I'm going to choose to love my spouse today, regardless of what he does to me. I think that is a huge mind shift for a lot of couples because, we're so used to that. I think it's the Greek is like, it's the eros love, the, I'm going to love you because of what you're going to give me, and once you don't give me anything, I'm done. But it's that agape love. It's the love that the Lord talks about. It's the command he gave to us, love God.
And health and all the stages of the vows you've recited.
Right. Yeah.
Agape love is the only way you're going to get through it.
It's the only way you're going to get through it. And you can only get through it with God's help. And so, when he commanded us to love others, you can't command a feeling. You can only, it has to be a choice. It has to be a choice you make. And so in those days when I didn't feel like loving him, but I chose to love him anyway, that just made all the difference in the world. And it helped with my security as well, because I wasn't dependent on him to make me feel good all day. It was my relationship with the Lord that kept me strong during that time of choosing to love.
I think for me, if I could go back or if I could tell any guys that are listening, it's something that I remember your dad spoke about one time, that in Ephesians 5, God explains what the role of a husband is and what the role of a wife is. And, guys, you're supposed to love your wife as Christ loves the church. Wives, submit to your husbands because they're the head of the household. And a lot of times we see those as two different things, but really what God's saying is, let me show you how to do that. And it comes from verse 21. It says, submit one to another. And I think the thing that we get asked a lot is that, what do you see as the number one issue in marriage? And hands down, it's pride. That was my issue. I know that was our issue. But it's funny how in verse 21 in Ephesians 5, it says to submit one to another. It's really submitting to each other and humbling yourself to each other keeps pride away. It leads to being vulnerable with each other. It leads to being exposed to each other so that you don't give a place for the enemy to come in and drive a wedge between you. So that would be my biggest thing and then ultimately try to find the resources that you can to take your marriage from the step that you are right now to the next step. And I think Marriage Today, you guys do such an amazing job of having just such quality resources that are available for people that are in every stage of that journey. So I would encourage people to find some resources, a tour event, a conference that can help them take that next step in their journey.
Well, this is kind of a warm-up for you guys. You're about to go on stage and crush it.
We're excited.
Yeah, we're excited.
Clayton and Ashlee, thanks for being on the podcast today. If people want to check out your book, I know it's everywhere because it's in Africa. Yeah. It's all over the world. But is there just Amazon? Do you guys send people to Amazon?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere online they can get it.
Yeah, and if you're in Houston, go to Lakewood Church and check them out. They have an awesome marriage class every weekend. I know the Brights do that class, but y'all are running point on everything. Go check them out. You'll be impressed with Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. I was impressed when I was there. All right, thanks guys so much. Everyone, thank you for listening to the XO podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the XO Marriage Podcast. I wanted to let you know that we have 2 other podcasts available, and I really encourage you to check them out. We have a Marriage Today podcast. This includes teachings from my dad and XO conference clips. They're incredible teachings. I know they'll bless your marriage. Also, Dave and Ashley Willis, some of our featured speakers on the XO Tour, have their own podcast called The Naked Marriage. It's got tons of great content. They take subjects that I know you'll care about and expound upon them and really dive deep into things that will enrich your marriage. So check out those 2 podcasts, Marriage Today podcast, Naked Marriage podcast. Thanks for tuning in.